Hello there and welcome, friends and fellow artists. My name is Cassie and I am excited to do another one of these nature-based art and meditation tutorials. These are part of a series of videos that I'm doing to promote the Walk to End Alzheimer's, which is coming up in just a few days for me. Mine is this Saturday morning, so I am excited to do one more video before the walk here, just sharing some mindfulness techniques and art making techniques that can help people to relax and unwind and feel a little bit closer to nature and feel a little bit more centered where they are in their lives. So let's get started. Today we are going to be doing salt dough impressions. So we're going to be using natural materials to make imprints in the salt dough that we create. And we're going to be considering what imprints we are leaving on the world for our meditation today. So we'll really be focusing on textures of the dough, textures of the items that we've chosen, and we're going to be thinking about a theme of leaving a positive legacy. So I'm just going to go over the materials really quickly. I am also going to list them in the description of this video below, so you can reference that. There's going to be kind of two steps to making this entire project. One is making the dough, and then the next is creating the actual art piece. So to make the dough, you will need salt, just regular cooking salt. I'm using iodized salt from Stone Mill. You'll need flour. All-purpose flour will work great. And you'll need warm water. Mine is in here to keep it warm until I'm ready to use it. You'll also need a mixing bowl, something to mix it with. You can use your hands. I encourage that because it really helps to engage with the sensory information as you're mixing and kneading the dough with your hands. But some people don't like that kind of sticky dough texture on their hands, and that's understandable. So if you need a utensil to mix, you can use the utensil to mix. We also need a measuring cup. So the ratio for the dough is 1 part salt to 1 part flour to a ½ part of warm water. So I'm using a ½ cup because I'm not making very much dough today, but you could adjust that if you wanted a bigger size batch or a smaller size batch. It's pretty simple ratio. So I will also list that down below in the description so you can reference that. And then to make the impression, you're going to need parchment paper or something to put the dough on to protect the surface that you're working on. Wax paper also works good. You will need a rolling pin, and you'll need your natural items. So I have kind of a big selection of little things that I've collected at the park. I'll insert a clip of my daughter helping me find some things at the park today to use for this project. She had a great time picking up little leaves and sticks and all kinds of things off the ground at the park. So those are our materials for the day. So we're going to get started making our salt dough. So you'll take your mixing bowl. I'm going to use 1 cup of the flour and 1 cup of the salt to make my dough. And salt dough is really great because it's versatile. You can use either an oven or a dehydrator to bake your dough to harden it, or you could let it air dry. So depending on what you have available, what is easiest for you will determine how long it takes for that process to happen. But once it's dry, you're able to paint it, and it's a pretty durable piece that you can use. A lot of people use salt dough to make like Christmas ornaments and little decorations kind of for their houses and things like that. So this is a material to keep in mind if you enjoy working with it. It's obviously pretty easy to make with things that you would likely have on hand in the kitchen, and inexpensive materials to use as well. So if you don't want to spend a bunch of money on certain types of clay, this is a good option to use. So I'm pouring my salt now. I'm going to use 1 cup of salt. I also love salt dough for our purposes here because I am really trying to keep the art materials something that are related to nature. And clearly, salt and flour and water are all from the earth, so that kind of fits with our theme as well. So now I'm adding the flour. So we will also use 1 cup of flour in our dough. Doesn't have to be perfect measurements, just kind of eyeballing it to get it somewhat close. Okay, so we have our salt and our flour, and I am going to add our warm water. So again, the water is half of the portion that you used for the salt and the flour. So this is just going to be a 1/2 cup of water. And it's good to use warm water because that kind of helps everything dissolve and mix together. If you only have cold water available, it'll work as well, but you might end up doing more mixing just to get everything to kind of shake hands, as my dad would say. Get all of the ingredients to shake hands. So now we're going to start mixing. Again, I'm using a utensil to mix because, as you can see, I got a Band-Aid on my finger. My cat scratched my finger last night, and I don't really feel like getting a lot of salt into that situation. So I'm going to use a utensil to get it started, and then once it's kind of coagulating a little bit, then I'll start to use my hands to knead it. But like I said, it's great to use your hands, just get in there and mix with your fingers, because we are utilizing textures, especially today, and that kind of sensory information that we get from our sense of touch in order to help focus and calm our minds. So that is one technique that is used in a lot of mindfulness practices. Being able to tune into our senses, as we did in some of our other videos, and thinking about how that sensory information, the experience of it, can help us kind of quiet and center our minds. So it takes practice, of course. Any kind of meditative practice, you're not going to necessarily get it the first or second time that you try it, or at least get the full experience of that. But the more that you try and the more that you practice that particular technique, the easier it becomes for you to tune in and use that in a beneficial way for your mental health and for your self-care, which I think we could all really use. All right, so I'm going to get in here with my hands and start mixing. Just thinking about how that texture feels. It's pretty grainy. It's warm from the warm water. So I'm going to keep mixing, and we will restart I will come back once I have the dough ready. Alright, so as you can see, I have the dough mixed. This is about 1/4 of the full amount of dough I have in the bowl. This is what I'm going to be using for our example here. And the texture of the dough is pretty sticky. It's still a little bit grainy, but as you can see, it's kind of stretchy and pliable, kind of the same consistency as Play-Doh would be, if you're familiar with that. So we are going to roll the dough out using our rolling pin and the parchment paper so that it's ready to make our impressions. Now, consider the thickness of your dough as you do this, because the thicker it is, the longer it will take to dry or to harden if you put it in an oven or a dehydrator or something like that. So we really want to keep that in mind as we're doing this. I'm also going to put some flour on the rolling pin because our dough is pretty sticky. So that will kind of keep the dough from clinging too much to the rolling pin as we do this. But I'm just going to roll it out. We're not necessarily looking for a specific thickness of the dough. I'm going to get it sort of thin, but we don't want it to be too thin either because we also don't want it to tear. And we want a nice cushy surface for our natural materials to sink into. So just get it smooth and about as thick as you'd like it. That looks good for me. Okay. So then we're going to get our natural materials out. And as I collected these, I was really thinking about textures, because the more texture a natural item has, the better it will show up on our piece. So I do have a few leaves. Clearly the leaves are going to have a little bit less texture, but they have nice shapes. So I'm going to use those. I have a pine cone, a small little pine cone. I got a chunk of moss. We'll see how that turns out. And I have a lot of little acorns and the tops of acorns. My daughter would not stop picking these up. So I have quite a few of these to choose from, different sizes, and of course different kind of textures on each of those. So I'll take a few of those out. And I have some smaller leaves that I'm going to use. And you'll just kind of consider how you want to arrange these items on your clay before you lay them out. So for me, I thought a good symbol for today's topic of meditation would be a butterfly. So I'm going to kind of arrange these items in a way that looks like the image of a butterfly. So I'm going to start with, I think, the pine cone, which I will use for the body of the butterfly. And I'm just going to lay that down on the dough, press it in. I'm trying to do even pressure as much as possible. And then I'm going to kind of wiggle it a little bit so it doesn't tear the dough as I lift it out. As you can see, it leaves a nice little impression there. So the reason I think a butterfly is a great symbol for what we are talking about today is because of the butterfly effect. I'm not sure if you are familiar with the butterfly effect, but the idea is that we are all connected so inherently in our existence that a butterfly flapping its wings in one part of the world can cause the air to move a certain way, which then escalates and kind of snowballs to result in a major storm, like a hurricane or a typhoon, in another part of the world. And I think about that in relation to our actions and our deeds, so to speak, and just thinking about how one good deed could really have like this massive ripple effect and cause a lot of amazing things to happen in the world, which I think is just a really beautiful metaphor. So I thought the butterfly effect is an interesting symbol that we could use for our concept of a legacy. Okay, so as you can see, I got some wings going on from our butterfly. Now, of course, we want to leave a positive legacy. We want to leave a positive mark on the world. And there's a quote from Maya Angelou that says, "I am convinced of this. Good done anywhere is good done everywhere." And I think, again, that that is just a wonderful representation of what we are capable of as people and as friends, family is concerned. I think it's just a beautiful image to consider. That the good that we bring forth in our lives can have such a profound effect on the rest of the world. I'm going to try this moss here. I'm not sure how this is going to turn out, but I have a lot going on these top wings, just trying to get the shape of them to be what I like. That's neat. Okay. So I have my impressions done. I'm going to insert an image since you have kind of an upside down view of where we are here. So I'll insert an image into the video of my little butterfly. But you're just going to make your impressions in the salt dough using your natural materials. And then if you would like, you can always use a knife, or I'm going to use my little mixing utensil here to crop the clay. So that it is ready to be baked in the oven. Try to put an interesting edge on here instead of just flat, straight lines. Okay. So now that our imprint has been made, I'm going to put our salt dough into the oven, and I will also list in the description the baking times and temperatures if you're able to do that. If you're letting your piece air dry, it's going to take over 24 hours depending on the thickness of your clay. So you'll just want to keep coming back and kind of checking the hardness of it. But it's going to take over 24 hours if you're air drying your clay. Otherwise, I am going to be baking mine in my air fryer, and I believe the recommended baking time and temperature is about 200 degrees for, depending again on your thickness, at least 4 hours. So I will get back to you. I will start up the video again when the baking process is complete, and we will paint the salt dough. If you prefer not to paint or seal your piece at all, if you want it to just be natural, then this is it. This is done. However, if you wanted to add a few like finishing touches, some people like to take a nail file, like a coarse nail file, and kind of sand the edges of their piece just to give it a more finished look. Some people even get a clear, like acrylic paint to seal their salt dough creation. Other people like to use a skewer or a chopstick to make a little hole in the salt dough so that it can be used as a pendant or an ornament, or it could be hung. So these are some options that you have in what you do next with your project. But this is kind of a reflection of what impression are we leaving on the earth, on other people? What is our legacy? And thinking about our positive deeds, our positive actions, which I think most people, the good outweighs the bad. I mean, we all make mistakes and we all have areas of our life that we're not proud of, but I think the vast majority is good deeds. And I like to think that those good deeds then are kind of amplified as they travel across space and time through other people and their experiences and their memories of us, and they culminate in even greater good than we could have comprehended to begin with. So I hope you enjoyed these meditations on your legacy and kind of using sensory information as far as textures and feelings go to calm yourself and center yourself in the present moment. If you found any of that helpful, I encourage you to continue research on that area and continue practicing it so that it can be a more natural and accessible tool for you in the future. And again, if you feel so inclined, I would love to see your support on my fundraiser. My Walk to End Alzheimer's is this coming Saturday, so my fundraiser will be up beyond that, but if you could make it in before this Saturday, that would be extra special for me. Otherwise, sharing, commenting on the video, subscribing to my channel, all of that is so appreciated. And I just want to thank everyone who has joined me on this journey this year so far. This has been a really fun project to do for my fundraiser. And I look forward to more videos in the future. Again, incorporating art and nature and mindfulness techniques. Okay, just coming in for a quick update here. Now that my piece has been baked, I ended up using the dehydrator function on my air fryer, and I only left it in for like 3 hours on 175. So my dehydrator function doesn't go higher than 175 degrees, so that's what I chose. And my piece is pretty thin, as you can see, so I only left it in for 3 hours. I checked it a few times and it seems like it's pretty much done. Now, I wanted to show you the edges. So as you can see, the edges are kind of rough, And if you wanted to finish that off a little bit easier, there's a coarse nail file would work really well to kind of sand that down. And so I'm just going to try that here. And then if you wanted, once your piece is fully dried, whether you're air drying it or baking it in the oven, once it's fully dried and finished, you can add acrylic paint to it. You could seal it with ModPodge, which I might do with mine. But I just wanted to show you how easy it is to kind of file down those edges and get a smoother, more finished kind of edge to your piece, if that's what you're going for. Again, like I said in my other video about the torn edges, I kind of like that rugged, more organic edge to a lot of my artworks, but if you're looking for something that's a little bit more precise and clean looking, this is a good way to achieve that after it's been dried or baked. It also keeps it from, you know, snagging on things depending on what you're going to do with your piece. If it's a smaller piece and you're using it for jewelry, that would be helpful, that it doesn't snag on your clothes or catch your hair or anything like that. So there's a lot of options on how to finish off your piece that you can kind of experiment with. And like I said, salt dough is very inexpensive and easy to make. So feel free to make more artworks with it and kind of experiment with how you like the finished product to turn out. I hope this was a fun little experiment for you and that you enjoyed the meditation. Once again, I am just so humbled and grateful for all of the support that I've received so far this year, and I look forward to our next project together. Thanks so much. Take care.